Okay, so the question is, are there any tips on creating small silhouettes in a painting to dictate a crowd? So let's answer that question by working on this piece here. Let's say that I wanted to add a crowd of people hanging out on these stairs. So the first thing to remember is that the human form can ultimately be boiled down to some pretty simple shapes. As you can see, I already have some silhouettes in here of some people back here looking at what's going on, and from a distance, it's fairly convincing as these three people. Maybe this is a child standing here at the top of the stairs. As you get in close, you can see these are just fairly simple shapes. There's not much going on here. But the human form, the human face, features can all be boiled down to sort of pretty simple iconic symbols, right? So let's start with a new layer and see what we can do here. So the other thing to keep in mind when doing a crowd is you want that sense of depth, right? And you have to get the scale right. You have to make sure that when you're showing people in a crowd, that it doesn't get all jumbled, and that you still get that sense of space, that there is space receding, and that the crowd of people is receding into the background. So I'm going to just start creating some pretty simple silhouettes. The human body, if it's a normal person, if it's a normal human being, generally has kind of like a wedge shape, wide at the shoulders and then tapers down. And it's a pretty simple kind of shape to kind of draw, and it very quickly sort of looks like a human being, right? Feeling like maybe these guys aren't the right scale just yet based on this guy, but maybe this guy is more of like a really tall dude or a giant or something. And that's the other thing. So if you play with those fairly recognizable shapes, then you might be introducing a different kind of character, a different kind of person. Maybe it's an alien or a monster of some sort. But if you want to do that, make sure that can be reduced to a fairly simple shape that's recognizably different than the shapes that you're using for your people, right? So as you can see, I went with a darker color than was back here, so that they're contrasted a little more against the background. What might have to happen is these people up here on the top of the stairs might need to recede even more. This guy might be too tall. I'm not sure. It didn't bother me before, but now that I'm starting to put in the other people here in the foreground, it's starting to bother me a little bit that he's as tall as he is. And this guy is kind of standing right next to him, so I'm gonna move him. And the thing is you can play with placement, and what you'll see me do is that right now I'm drawing these guys with some room in between them, some space in between them, but we'll use other layers to kind of play around with having having these people overlap. The other thing is to think about how people carry themselves. If they're, are they walking? Are they standing still? Are they looking intently at what's going on? If everybody's looking in the same direction, then that indicates that there's something to be seen, and that some sort of event is occurring or has occurred, or there's something there that's unexpected, and so people have gathered. Whereas if you were drawing a crowd of people who were all going about their business, and then you would have people facing in different directions. You'd have them in motion, walking, talking to each other. In this case, I'm kind of imagining that everyone's kind of looking over here at what has happened. You usually start with the head, and you can kind of go from there. I mean, it's very simple. I mean, in the simplest of terms, just drawing the beginnings of a human form is just a circle, or an oval rather, for a head, and then this triangular wedge shape for the body, and then you can sort of build it from there. That's really the sort of a really simple way to start. But think about silhouette. Does somebody have? Maybe some people can have wider shoulders. Maybe they're wearing something that makes their shoulders wide. Maybe they're wearing a robe. Change it up a little bit here and there if you want your crowd to be a crowd of sort of diverse people, right? Think about male and female forms as well. Keep redrawing this guy. Again, let your brush guide you a little bit. Don't worry about it being a little messy early on. You can kind of play with these shapes. And again, the idea is to get the impression of a crowd, and not to paint sort of individual people separately. If you got the time and you want to do that, that's different. But this is still how you would start that kind of process. You got to make sure it works sort of in that first read before you get in and paint up a lot of details. So I'm starting to get some people in here, feeling pretty good about it. Maybe you need to have some different body types. Maybe there's maybe start that guy in a new layer. So I'm going to start a new layer underneath of this. Slightly lighter color, lighter green here. Maybe indicate it's pretty overweight. It's going to be a somewhat different body shape. See, I think I need to drop these guys back a bit to create that sort of layered effect. Create sort of use atmospheric perspective to my advantage here. Plus, I also think that guy is too big. He's too tall. So I'm going to have to reduce him down, I think. Or maybe I could just paint him down on this layer. Every now and then you need to sort of back away from it, zoom out, see what's going on. But make sure you get a good amount of people in there first before you make any decisions about if it's working or not. You want to get those shapes in there, and then you can kind of adjust the scale. You can adjust the atmospheric perspective on them if you need to. Get back in there. I think these people in the front need to be a little bigger, so I'm going to scale them up a bit. It's okay because we'll be going back in and at some point, you know, painting into these guys. Maybe not in this demo, but you know, I'll sort of start it and you'll see what I mean. All right, keep working on these guys back here. This guy's got some sort of sword he's wearing, something in the back. These guys might need to be a little bit lighter. So you see what I'm saying? So see what I'm doing is I'm just kind of adjusting and as I go, you know, by working in separate layers, it gives me the ability to kind of move the people around and make sure that the composition feels right, that the overlapping feels right. You know, if you have a nice big open space, put a head there. You know, that will it's a good place to put a head. And you'll notice, like, as we start to build up a lot of characters in a particular area, that doesn't really matter what happens with the legs. You know, we don't see the legs as much, and it just sort of becomes a bit of a jumble down there. And that's fine. People aren't going to inspect it too much and say, "Oh, ooh, where's that guy's leg?" And you know, it doesn't look like he's wearing the same shoe on that foot as the other foot. I mean, you know, again, because you're trying to paint a crowd of people sort of in the distance, you're not focused in on them. What's most important is that the silhouettes read as convincing from a distance and not necessarily that all the details are, you know, exactly spot on. So we start to kind of feel as if we're, you know, we're liking where this is going, getting the right amount of people in here. You know, also the thing about crowds is they don't, you know, people tend to spread out as much as possible, as much as they're able to. You know, it all depends on, you have to think about how crowds move and go outside and, you know, go to an event where there are a lot of people and just look at how people cluster. You know, if you go to like an outdoor concert, you'll see people try to pick spaces to sit where there's sort of an equidistant amount of room around them. If it's, you know, mostly strangers that are there. If it's people we're familiar with, we're less likely to spread ourselves out so much or give that sort of equal amount of distance in between. We might cluster with groups of people that we're more familiar with. So it's just, you know, it just takes time and observation to get those things right, to make them convincing. If everybody was just lined up, you know, along the side here, it wouldn't make a whole lot of sense. So I just realized that this staircase is way in the foreground, so it wouldn't make sense that anybody be leaning on it. So I can't have their silhouettes continue down here. Oops. All right, so starting to get there. But the other thing is that people won't but it also, you have to have that sort of sense of randomization, right? It also wouldn't make sense if everybody was completely like there's a guy here, and then 4 feet away there's another guy here, and another 4 feet there's another guy here, and that they're mathematically equidistant in their separation. So it's a balance, right? Let's zoom out and see how this is starting to look. Not bad. So if we zoom way out, we can kind of think about, can look at it in the context of the rest of the image and start putting some more people in there. Again, just think about that wedge shape, the oval and the wedge. It's just a quick way to kind of quickly put some people in there and see how it looks. And see if that's what you want, and to easily get the scale, or to at least figure out the scale fairly early on. And then when you go back in and hammer out the details, you can feel pretty confident that you're not painting something that's totally out of scale. Scale in this piece is a little weird to begin with, because we have this giant bird, so it kind of throws you off. Maybe there's two people who are even further forward, but they're together, so they're almost shoulder to shoulder. Maybe one's leaning into the other to talk, right? Like, what's going on here? Like, why do we keep seeing these events occur? Or why are they trying to? They're talking. So you have them leaning in towards each other, even though they might both be looking towards the event. These are just quick, easy cues that tell the viewer a little bit of the story. Maybe this guy could be gesturing with his hand out. Well, I don't know. Why do these birds keep falling from the sky? All right, so now we can kind of go back to our layers here, and these guys are looking pretty flat right now, so I'm going to add a little bit of atmospheric perspective, but mostly down towards the legs. Just a quick, easy trick to kind of add some depth and to the character and make them feel as if they're standing in the space, and they're not just these flat cardboard cutouts that have been plopped on top of the painting. And then if you want, you can do some quick things like you could pop out some highlights. We know we have this sort of greenish light, but there's maybe which is maybe it's coming from the buildings and the windows. So we might be able to play around with that and just have pop off some quick, sort of like highlights or rim lights. Might help to define some interior details on these people. Doesn't take much. I mean, you could even just sort of use some random movements to help fill in some details. As long as you kind of have a general idea of what somebody might be wearing, you can indicate a belt line. can indicate collar, drapes, the drape of a robe. We get some pretty strong rim light to make some people stand out from the background a bit more. Okay, but in a fairly short order, you can have the start of something that really feels like a crowd of people, and which help to add that much more depth and interest to your piece, and make your world that you're depicting feel more alive. Okay, hope that helps. Bye bye.